Right now, I think that Bitcoin is holding up much more than it should throughout this macro sell-off. And I'm not really worried about the macro picture either, just, a very quick soundbite on it.
The sell-off for crypto continues. Let's talk about what's next for Bitcoin, what's next for crypto, as well as another $1 trillion erased from the stock market. Watch today's whole video. I'll also share with you some pretty interesting altcoin updates. You're going to want to see this. But most people still don't understand the momentum shift we've just seen with traditional markets. This is the 200-day moving average for the S&P 500. Do you see what's happening? This won't mean anything to you if you have never studied technical analysis, but the S&P 500 sold off and fell below the 200-day moving average. And we didn't just fall below. We fell below, then bounced back up, then got that confirmation rejection to the downside. And again, this means momentum shift. This is a confirmed new downtrend in the stock market, and all trading algorithms and technical traders are now treating it as a downtrend. America is heading for a recession, according to this analyst, and a bear market this year because of Trump's economic policies. But what happened the last few times in history when we saw something like this with traditional markets? Click subscribe to Altcoin Daily for daily updates keeping you informed. And before we get to Bitcoin, right now we're on TradingView, the Bitcoin chart. Let's hop on over to the S&P 500. And we can see we still have the same indicators, the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average. Moving averages show momentum and trends. If moving averages are trending up, that shows the trend of bullish momentum, a bull market. If moving averages are trending down, that shows the inverse, bear market. And as they say, the trend is your friend, meaning once momentum is headed in a certain direction in a market, the trend tends to stay in that direction until we get a clear breakdown or a clear breakout. And first thing you're going to notice, number one, we see, just like we saw in that other chart, the break below, the retest, and then the rejection. Many times in the S&P's history, we've gotten, by the way, the yellow is the 200-day moving average. We got the breakdown, but it was really just more of a fake out because we immediately bounced back up and the bull market continued. That's why the confirmation is so important. And really, the last time we got a clear rejection of the 200-day moving average to the downside with the S&P, we're looking at the yellow, the 200-day MA, and the last time we saw this was in mid-2022, meaning we broke below, we bounced back up, clear rejection, and that started momentum to the downside. And how long did then the bearish market last? Well, it lasted really the rest of the year, from April of 2022 to January of 2023. Let's look at, copy this, let's look at one more example. We have the COVID crash of 2020. This one was sort of a forced market crash because it was a global shutdown. And actually, I'm looking at this right now, and we got the breakdown. And then the second we retested again, we broke back above. So this wasn't even a bear market, just a quick little over 20% correction. Damn, it's sort of hard to find the last time of significance. Oh, here we go. It was the very end of 2007, the housing crisis crash. We broke below, then retested, got rejected to the downside, and that lasted about 8 months. So a bear market that lasted 8 months, and then a bear market that lasted 9 months. And we have just seen the confirmation of the rejection again. And we all understand why. The S&P 500 erases $1 trillion of market cap and posts its largest daily decline since March 10th. Next week is officially reciprocal tariffs week, with the S&P 500 now 50 points away from correction territory. Buckle up. A lot of people who thought Trump was sort of bluffing as a negotiating tactic with this trade war are starting to understand that he's serious.
Our guest, the famed developer Donald Trump of New York.
And we can even look back on clips from the 1980s of Trump saying very similar things. So we know he really believes this.
The fact is that you don't have free trade. We think of it as free trade, but you right now don't have free trade. And I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country.
So how low could Bitcoin go if traditional markets take another leg down? Well, something to note is that the S&P 500 has already corrected from its recent all-time highs about 10%. A 20% correction in the stock market is considered a recession. 20%, 10% is nothing to Bitcoin holders, but 20% in the stock market is recession. So if we see another 10% with the S&P, where could that put Bitcoin?
Right now, I think that Bitcoin is holding up much more than it should throughout this macro sell-off. And I'm not really worried about the macro picture either, just a very quick soundbite on it. I think that it's time to talk about Donald Trump a little bit. He's got some big things going on. He's transferring taxation from, trying to transfer taxation from income to consumption. That's one big thing he's got going on. And then, there's another effort within his administration to transfer GDP contribution from government spending to private spending. Those two big realignments are shaking markets, volatility shaking markets. But I don't think he has the mandate. I don't think he got elected on a mandate to tank asset prices. And so I think, if the S&P drops another 10%, then you're in real correction / recession territory. And I think that, they don't have the mandate to suffer a much bigger drawdown than that. I think they'll put a floor under the market. They have ample tools to do so. Rates can get cut a lot from here before you even have to start QE. There's tons of cash out there, tons of private credit to cushion any dip. So I think the S&P is floored 10% under here, meaning if the Bitcoin S&P ratio stays consistent like it has been, I think we've got maybe another 10% dip in Bitcoin, 20% max before the stimulus or the rate cuts start buoying things. And 10% is a lot in S&P space. It's not a lot for crypto.
Bitcoin could easily drop into the low $70,000 range. We have massive support there if traditional markets continue to tank. And then, of course, worst case scenario, much more support in the high 50s, low $60,000 range. Of course, nobody can predict an exact bottom, just like nobody can predict an exact top. If you were around in 2021, people were screaming at this, in retrospect, what was the top? People were screaming so much higher when it had already topped. Just like, again, if you were around at the end of 2022, you remember this so well. Bitcoin was around $15,000, $16,000, and people were screaming. Under $14,000, under $11,000. People were screaming lower when, in fact, we'd already bottomed. Maybe we already bottomed a few weeks ago. Obviously, the minute I get new information, I will make a video. I will keep you updated. Click subscribe to Altcoin Daily for an edge investing in crypto. And this is pretty interesting for crypto gaming. Introducing Gun on Binance Launchpool, the biggest AAA gaming ecosystem in Web3, is heading to Binance, the world's leading exchange. Many of you know Gunzilla as the layer 1 blockchain that powers Off the Grid, which is a major crypto game that we've talked about many, many times on the channel. I'm running nodes for Off the Grid. Well, very prestigious Binance Launchpad has chose to back the project as they launch. Anybody that wants to farm the Gun airdrop, feel free. Somebody says, I just locked in $5,000 in BNB to farm the Gunzilla Games airdrop on Binance. And check out this data. Some interesting data on the Gun launch pool. Still 2 days to go, and the Gun's layer 1 blockchain has already gained more interest from the Binance community than their last 10 Launchpad projects. 1.6 million users are currently staking, $4.2 billion in USD in stablecoins, and 18.6 million BNB, which is around $10.8 billion USD, all staked, all trying to get in on the Guns token, Guns Layer 1 blockchain. And looking at this number, compared to the last 10 projects coming out of Binance Launchpool, the number speaks for itself. But that is the video. My name's Austin. Like always, see you tomorrow.